Hello, my Whoop friends. Today I would like to introduce you to a tiny Whoop product from T-Motor, the M0802 27,000 kV motors in version 2. T-Motor contacted me for a collaboration and provided the motors to me free of charge. A few weeks ago, I introduced these motors in my YouTube community, and some of you said the motors look like poor quality. I can understand that because the surface of the motors is a bit rough, as you will see later in the video. But by now, I think this was intentionally chosen by T-Motor. Because ever since I held the motors in my hands and test flew them, I have to say that they are of good quality. Definitely not worse than other manufacturers. The rough surface is a bit unusual, but in theory it could even provide better cooling. What immediately caught my attention while unboxing was that a few spare parts were included. That is very rare, and I really appreciate it. Well done, T-Motor. T-Motor already earned my respect through this small forward-thinking and community-oriented gesture alone. The M0802 27,000 kV V2 motors are dual ball bearing motors and feature curved magnets. And surprisingly, the motors are lighter than what T-Motor states on the packaging. That is also very likable. The static thrust of the motors and the flight performance are about what I would expect from a motor of this size and kV, as you will see later in the video. That means I can already tell you now that I can generally recommend this motor. But as usual, in this video, I will give you all the data you need so that you can decide for yourself whether you want to buy this motor or not. My task, as always, is to do test flights and generate data for you, my Whoop friends, and then make a video out of it for you. Nothing more and nothing less. You have to decide for yourself. As already mentioned, the weight of the M0802 27,000 kV V2 motors is lighter than stated by T-Motor. T-Motor states a weight of 2.1 grams per motor on the packaging. In reality, however, the motors are probably just under 2 grams at around 1.97 grams. That is a normal weight for motors in this size class. There are lighter motors nowadays, but in general, 2 grams is personally enough for me for an 802 motor. Not especially good, but sufficient. Of course, lighter is always better. As already mentioned, the M0802 27,000 kV V2 motors feature curved magnets and dual ball bearings. Visually, the motor windings look good, and the termination of the motor windings is delta termination. The motor wires have a typical length of around 35 millimeters, which is okay. Personally, however, I would prefer slightly longer motor wires for more flexibility in builds. The solder joints look good, but they are unprotected like with many other manufacturers as well. Here I recommend applying some flexible glue like E6000 to the solder joints and part of the motor wires. If you do not do this, the motor wires will break off at the solder joint relatively quickly. The motor shaft of the M0802 27,000 kV V2 motors has a diameter of 1 millimeter at the open end. I cannot yet judge the quality of the motor shaft material because I no longer crash hard very often and only rarely, but it will probably be roughly in the usual range. My estimate is that the motor shaft quality is probably a bit better than on Happy Model motors and probably not quite as good as on RC Einpower motors. But as I said, that is only an estimate. The static thrust of the motors is around 187 grams. That is about what I expected. There are definitely stronger motors on the market, although some of them simply have more kV than stated by the manufacturer. I would say the M0802 27,000 kV V2 motors from T-Motor have a pretty realistic kV rating, and the motor efficiency is within the usual average range. The flight feel with the M0802 27,000 kV V2 motors from T-Motor is flawless. They feel like normal tiny Whoop motors in flight. Flight feel is always very subjective, and it actually makes little sense to make a statement about it. But if you ask me how the motors felt in flight, I would say completely normal with a tendency toward torque. If I'm not mistaken, these motors have good torque compared to other motors in this size class and kV range. But I could also be wrong. The thrust is a little lower than motors with the same kV rating from other manufacturers. In any case, I was satisfied with the test flights. The motors, or rather the flights with these motors, felt good. Based on my current experience, I can generally recommend the M0802 27,000 kV V2 motors from T-Motor. In the future, it will become clear how durable these motors are. Unfortunately, I am not sure whether the M802 27,000 kV V2 motors from Team T-Motor are still in stock anywhere. The information in the shops is sometimes very confusing. In some shops, the picture shows the V1 version of the motor, while the text says V2 version, and vice versa. I am not sure where these motors are still available. Please write in the comments if you find a shop that still has exactly these V2 motors in stock. If you like my video and would like to support my work, then please use the affiliate link in the video description for your orders from T-Motor. With the discount code BUTTERFLYFPV, you will receive a 10% discount on your entire order. Use the chapters to navigate through the rest of this video. And if you would like to support my work further, I would appreciate a small donation on Ko-fi.com. The link is also in the video description. Thank you very much for your support, my whoop friends. Stay tuned for future videos and check out my many tutorials on this YouTube channel, into which I have invested a lot of work. Happy flying, my whoop friends! I built a 75mm tiny whoop with this Meps F411 1S 15 amps AIO from Mepsking, using 802 7000 kV motors from T-Motor, a Happy Model OVX300 VTX, and a Happy Model EP1 ELRS receiver. At first, I wanted to build the tiny whoop with a Spectrum DSMX receiver, but that did not work because the Flightcontroller is only suitable for Spectrum receivers with 5-volt power supply and S-Bus connection. I currently do not have such a Spectrum DSMX S-Bus receiver, so I used a Happy Model EP1 ELRS receiver for this build. Building the tiny whoop was, like with all 2-in-1 AIO flight controllers, somewhat tedious. For a future build, I would definitely use a receiver with a smaller flat antenna, or an antenna integrated into the board. Despite my many years of experience, during the build, I of course soldered the VTX incorrectly once again because I had not done it for a long time. I had forgotten that RX goes to TX and TX goes to RX. But after correcting that, and after realizing that the VTX only works when a LiPo battery is connected, and that the USB connection alone is not enough, the rest was child's play. I removed the motor plugs right at the beginning because I want full power. I will show you how to do that in another video. If you want to use motor plugs, then I recommend applying a contact enhancer. That probably gives a bit more performance and reduces the risk of contact corrosion or electrical fretting. I have already made 1 or 2 videos about this topic, which you can watch if you are interested. Despite titanium motor and canopy screws, as well as canopy and frame weight reductions, the tiny whoop ended up somewhat heavy at 26 grams dry weight. That was expected and is not a problem. As you can see in the flight footage, the tiny whoop still flies very well. I flew the tiny whoop with the stock Betaflight PID settings and with old Beta FPV LiPos. As you can see in the flight footage, the whoop flies perfectly fine even with these old LiPos. However, I recommend flying with the new Lava 2 LiPos, which have better performance. The hover flight time of the tiny whoop was over 5.5 minutes. The flight time with my race flying style was between 2 and 2.5 minutes. There is not much more I can say at the moment. Hello, my whoop friends. In this video, I want to introduce you to the MEPS F4111 1S 15 amps AIO from Mepsking, which was provided to me by Mepsking. I had to order the flight controller from the Mepsking website, which was very simple and straightforward. The shipping time was around 2 weeks. The flight controller was provided to me free of charge by Mepsking for this video, so that I can test this flight controller for you, my whoop friends. The MEPS F411 1S 15 amps AIO flight controller is a 2-in-1 AIO. That means the flight controller and the ESCs are combined on one board. A receiver and the VTX have to be purchased separately and soldered on by yourself. I assume this flight controller from Mepsking is intended for pilots who want to stay flexible in their choice of VTX and receiver. For example, for someone who wants a full-range receiver, or a good powerful VTX, or both. Or for pilots who appreciate repairability if the VTX or receiver breaks. Maybe this also makes the flight controller and ESCs a little more durable because everything has enough space on the flight controller board. Additionally, the MEPS F411 1S 15 amps AIO flight controller comes with 15 amp BL Heligor 32 ESCs, which some old school pilots who started with BL Heli 32 may also appreciate. The ESCs are configured from the factory by Mepsking with a 96 kHz PWM frequency. There is not much more I can say at the moment, except that the flight controller is lighter than stated on the Mepsking website at 4.5 grams. On the website it says 6.7 grams. The flight controller package also includes 2 main cables with BT 2.0 connectors and a crimped PH 2.0 connector, which I definitely will not use and would not recommend to anyone. If you absolutely want to use a PH 2.0 connector, then definitely use a solid pin PH 2.0 connector. I also will not use the included BT 2.0 main cable because the cable is AWG24, which from my point of view is too thin and causes unnecessary voltage sag. As always, I will use an AWG20 cable with a thicker cross-section in combination with a BT 2.0 connector. That gives the longest flight time and the least voltage sag. I have also already made several proof videos about the topic of AWG20 wires. If you need more information about that, then watch those videos. Also check out my other tutorials and proof videos on this YouTube channel, into which I have invested a lot of time and passion. If you want to buy the MEPS F411 1S 15 amps AIO from Mepsking and you enjoy my videos, then please use the affiliate link in the video description to support my work a little bit. Also, use the discount code BFFPV to get a discount on your order.
Some additional information can be found in the video description. Please watch my many other tutorials on this YouTube channel if you want to know more about how to modify a tiny boop or how to learn FPV flying and racing.